Hello, everybody. RMJ Movie Reviews back again. All right, everybody. I figured since during Christmas I did a review of Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2, I figured I might just go on ahead and just wrap it up and do a movie review of Die Hard with a Vengeance. Again, like I had on the previous two films, this is the THX original 20th century double disc release version from, I think this is 2003. And like I said, for newer viewers, if you can, look for this version only. Don't look for these new re-released crappy versions. Die Hard with a Vengeance is a fantastic sequel. Miles and miles and miles better than the second film. The second film, like I said in the previous review, I originally did not like, but it grew on me years later. The problems being that it mimics the first film too much. Die Hard with a Vengeance is, yes, I mean, of course, people who are boring and don't like excitement in their life, they'll be like, oh, it's just a violent action picture. And yes, it is a quote-unquote Die Hard movie, even for what Die Hard was known for at that time, back in 1995, May, when this film was released. But it's kind of a different. It's done in a different way than the second film. Number one, the gigantic benefits of Die Hard with a Vengeance is, number one, of course, who else could play John McClane, but Bruce Willis comes back again, and Bruce Willis was not phoning it in like he did in those two things that came after this film. But Bruce Willis was actually still, he was still a younger guy. He wasn't, at least to the public's knowledge, he wasn't a cynical and angry movie star like he is now. And he still plays John McClane with kind of that wink wink wisecracking. And although Bruce is a little bit weathered in this movie, he still has the John McClane energy. Not as much as in the first one or the second one, but and although John McClane is in a bad space in this film too, just in his private life, kind of a continuation of what you saw in the first film. But Bruce Willis is still in it, and he's not phoning it in. Jeremy Irons as the villain. We all know, I can tell you the story. The brother of Hans Gruber from the first film, the brother of Alan Rickman. He's not in that much of the film. Well, he's kind of really more in the second and third act of the film, not so much the very first act. But he very much is kind of a continuation of what Alan Rickman did in that first film. Kind of that smooth, sociopathic kind of, I'm really more concerned about going directly after what I want, but if I have to hurt people to get what I want, I will do that. He's not as mean-spirited as Colonel Stewart from the second film, but that's okay, because this is a direct sequel to Die Hard, the first one, instead of just a sequel like the second film. This is a continuation of a story from the first film, so in that sense it works. And then, of course, we have the gigantic benefit of Samuel L. Jackson, which at this time, I think Samuel L. Jackson, like me and my friends and stuff, we had known who he was, but he wasn't Samuel L. Jackson yet at that time. He was just a guy who had been like in Juice and Risky Business and Jungle Fever and a couple of other movies that Samuel L. had. The guy who said "Hold on to your butts" from Jurassic Park. That's who he was. And Pulp Fiction had literally just come out a year before Die Hard with a Vengeance. So Samuel Jackson was just becoming Samuel Jackson. And the chemistry between him and Bruce Willis is really honestly what carries this film, because the storyline of Die Hard with a Vengeance honestly isn't that good. We all know that third movies in a franchise can make or break. I mean, we could take a look at, specifically Alien 3, Batman Forever, Lethal Weapon 3, Godfather 3, Superman 3. Tons of other three movies that just pretty much break franchises. In this case, Die Hard with a Vengeance set a higher bar than the second film, in my opinion. And again, too, this was in 1995. The storyline was pretty controversial. Speed had just come out the previous summer in '94, and was there was a lot of mad bomber movies coming out. The only problem was people started mad bombing in real life because the Oklahoma City bombings had happened around this time before Die Hard with a Vengeance came out. And, Simon is basically going around New York, blowing up department stores. And while he's in New York City, he decides that he wants to mess with John McClane because he killed his brother. So he has him running around town doing all these little crazy crazy obstacle courses that he has to overcome, and Samuel L. Jackson joins the ride with him because he saved him in Harlem while he was walking around with a sign that said "I hate niggers." One of the more really, really absurd gags in the movie. It's so absolutely absurd. This is just a popcorn movie. So the storyline really isn't quite there. It's really, and I forgot to add that John McTiernan came back to direct, who directed the first one. And again, you can see the style and the way John McTiernan is. John McTiernan is a fantastic action director. He just uses the whole frame. In which case, in the second film, Rennie Harlan has a different style of shooting action than John McTiernan does. John McTiernan really takes advantage of that wide frame. He shoots everything wide. Again, you have a clear understanding of who is where, the geography of the frame. And I love the way John McTiernan shoots. It's too bad he got involved with some shady characters, but I guess it's Hollywood. But he's a fantastic action director. And the one thing about this film is like the first one, let me kind of compare it to the second one more. It's not as mean-spirited as the second film. The second film is very mean-spirited, although I like that because I grew up on those kind of action pictures. But this movie is not as mean-spirited as the second film. There's a lot less gun battles. This one is kind of more adventure-y. There's really large set pieces, Bruce Willis in a tunnel being shot out of water. They're driving cars through Central Park. They're climbing across metal wires on bridges and trucks falling from bridges. And it's really more kind of just the momentum. You know what I mean? Once this movie starts, it does not stop. It just keeps going from one obstacle to the next. The first and the second film are in that style too, but there are moments where they kind of slow down. Die Hard with a Vengeance does not slow down. It just, once it starts, it just keeps going. And the movie is one giant chase from beginning to end. And again, not as many gun battles, but that's okay. And that's what makes it a little bit more different than the second film. Because the second film kind of got a little bit overboard with the kind of every 5 minutes. And it didn't really have as much of a kind of understanding of where people were shooting and stuff. You still get it better than you get like a Michael Bay movie now, but I kind of felt some of the action sequences in the second film got a little cluttery, I felt, in my opinion. But Die Hard with a Vengeance is more an adventure action film, and the chemistry between Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson really raises what little thin story there is to a whole nother level. Again, you've got minor players that all contribute to the story. Everybody has a personality, which I kind of felt in the second film. The supporting players didn't have as much personality as they did in the first film. So that kind of continues in Die Hard with a Vengeance, where every supporting player is supporting John McClane. They're working together. They all believe John McClane and they're helping him, as a case in the second film. Dennis Franz and some of the other people weren't really helping McClane as much. He was kind of more fighting against them while people are dying. So Die Hard with a Vengeance is fantastic. If anything, where the movie falters is, of course, the story is not as good as it could have been, but again, it's number 3. They were just trying to, I think, make a different action picture than the second film, which, like I said, the second film followed the Die Hard too closely. they wanted to do something different with this one, which I think they made a different kind of action film, a more adventure action film. And also, this was in the era when they were starting to bring in the digital stuff. So there's a little bit more digital in this one, which really didn't exist as much in the first and in the second film. But if anything where this movie falters is definitely for sure